What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so I want to put this out there again. On this channel, Too Raw for TV, generally, I will no longer talk about politics on this channel. I'm going to make this primarily a sports and entertainment dialogue channel, okay? With some other, you know, extracurricular topics at times. But politics will be going on my other channel, the No Spin Zone. All right, there's a link to the No Spin Zone in the pinned comment in the comment section below at the top. There's a link to that channel. If you're interested in listening to political dialogue from me, there's a lot of things going on, obviously. That's the channel to look at over there. So I just want to put that out there before I go into this video. And salute to the brother Lawrence for the donation via the Cash App. He had a question. He asked me, it was a question about Horace Grant. Lost train of thought a little bit. He said, do I think it was a good idea that Horace Grant left the Chicago Bulls? Do I think it was a good idea? I would say when you look at the overall picture, it was an overall good idea that he left Chicago. In the short term, it didn't benefit Chicago, but in the long term, I think it did. And this is just my opinion, okay? Doesn't mean I'm right. Doesn't mean I'm wrong. It's just an opinion. So those of us who know about Michael Jordan and Horace Grant, and they didn't really have the best relationship, obviously. They didn't have the best relationship. And a lot of it stems from the fact that Michael Jordan and Charles Oakley were thick as thieves. I don't know their relationship now, but I know at one point in time they were thick as thieves. Charles Oakley was his best friend in the NBA. And, you know, Oakley was Michael's enforcer. And I've always stated this too. I've stated that had Charles Oakley stayed with the Chicago Bulls, and if the Bulls had acquired Moses Malone, which they were thinking about doing in the late 80s, I think they would have beaten the bad boy Pistons earlier. I think they would have beaten them starting in 90. I've said that before. Because Charles Oakley wasn't, you know what I'm saying? They lost a lot of their physicality and toughness when they lost Charles Oakley. If you notice, the bad boy tactics didn't really start until after Charles Oakley was traded. But anyway, after Charles Oakley was traded, the reason why he was traded is because Bulls management saw Horace Grant as basically Charles Oakley's replacement with upside. Because Oakley was a guy that, you know, could get you 13 and 13 or definitely 12 and 12 a night. But potentially, they thought Horace Grant could be a guy that could get you, if he got the ball enough, 18 and 10, right? So he pretty much replicates Oakley's scoring, rebounding, but could get you more as far as scoring is concerned, right? Which the Bulls wanted as far as more front court scoring. The problem is Mike never took to Grant because he didn't want his boy gone. He didn't like it. He hated that trade. So part of that is why he always gave Horace Grant some problems, right? He didn't really like the fact that he replaced Charles Oakley, right? Who was more of his type of guy. He thought Horace Grant was kind of soft, which compared to Oakley, he was, so he did get tougher. Another reason why Mike and Oakley didn't get along very well is that he didn't think that Horace Grant worked as hard on his game as he should have, right? And that also eventually caused a rift between Grant and Pippen. Initially, Grant and Pippen were pretty cool. They were tight. They came in the same draft together, 87. And of course, they both kind of resented Michael Jordan, so that factor caused them to get closer. But as Pitt began to become Scottie Pippen, and Pippen worked hard, you know what I'm saying? Pippen worked hard on his game to get to the level that he actually got to. And to see Horace Grant kind of coast on his natural talent and not really want to work hard enough to get better, you know, Pippen kind of resented that too. All right. So ultimately, the Bulls do win a championship in 91, proceeded, then they went on to, win two more championships to the point where they won a three-peat. Michael Jordan then retires. And the Bulls have a relatively surprising good year, 93, 94. They win 55 games. They lose in 7 to the Knicks, who ultimately, in the next round, beat the Pacers to go to the finals. Some people think that the Bulls were in the conference finals, but it was actually the semifinals. You know, but that type of misinformation gets put out there all the time by the media. But anywho, that year, 93, 94, was the only year that Horace Grant was an all-star. And after that season, he became a free agent. Horace Grant had verbally, if I remember correctly, agreed to re-sign with the Chicago Bulls, but ultimately reneged on that and signed a deal with the Orlando Magic. Now, initially, he didn't get a lot of money with them, but I think when he either renegotiated his contract or extended his contract a couple of years later, he became briefly the second highest paid player in the NBA behind Michael Jordan. So for Horace Grant, financially, it worked out because, you know, even though Horace professes to wanted to win championships, you know, financially, I think that's what he was about more so, and he got that, right? And then for a couple of years, he played on some good teams with the Orlando Magic. And then in the early 2000s, he finished his career off with the Lakers. So he had a decent career, right? As far as winning is concerned and numbers. Actually, a great career as far as winning, decent career as far as production. But just to go further into that point about how I say that Horace Grant wasn't a guy that worked hard enough, you may have heard the story of Dr. Julius Erving, right? Well, he's not actual doctor, but you know what I mean. He was a consultant with the Orlando Magic, and he was trying to get Horace Grant to work on his game, and he noted that Horace didn't really want to work on his game. Horace was content with working in the post and having a 12 to 14-foot jumper, and that's it. He didn't want to work on his playmaking ability. He didn't want to work on his, other offensive moves. He didn't want to expand his range. He was comfortable where he was. And he said that, that was going to limit him as a player. But anyway, in the short term, obviously, the Bulls missed him. The 94-95 season, they were not very successful. At one point in time, before Michael Jordan came out of retirement, the Bulls were under 500 and in danger of missing the playoffs. When Jordan joined the Bulls in March of 1995, they were the 8th seed. Michael Jordan helped the Bulls finish 13-4 the rest of the way. They inched up to the 6th seed. But if you look at that first round series against the Charlotte Hornets, even though the Bulls won 3 games to 1, in game 1, if I remember correctly, Jordan dropped 48 points. They needed all of Mike's 48 points to get that victory. And I think the third and closeout victory was like a very close victory. So that series could have went either way, which is unbecoming of the Chicago Bulls in their dynasty years. So they definitely missed his front court presence and his production. And we saw that in the second round when you saw Horace Grant's production on display with the Orlando Magic, and you saw him not being there defensively for the Bulls, hurt them with Shaq, who did not necessarily have one of his most dominant series, but just the fact that he was doing what he was doing. I think he put up 27 and 12 or something like that. They just couldn't deal with that. So then they go and get Dennis Rodman, right? And then proceed to win 3 more championships. Now, Dennis Rodman didn't give you Horace Grant scoring. He only give you like 5 points a game, but that was offset by the fact that the Bulls had other guys that could score now. They had more guys that could score, in particular Tony Kukoc. Tony Kukoc go out there and get you, 13, 15 points coming off the bench, right? But this is where I think it's a good thing. Dennis Rodman looked up to Michael Jordan. Dennis Rodman respected the hell out of Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was one of the few guys who Dennis wanted to please. So Dennis was on his best behavior, especially the first 2 years in Chicago. Dennis wanted to do anything he could to please Mike and then ultimately Phil Jackson, right? Phil was sort of that, I don't want to say father figure because Chuck Daly was more like that. Phil was a nice fill-in, like the uncle. He needed that. I just feel that the natural acrimony and envy that Horace Grant felt toward Mike, I tend to think that if Grant had stayed, I tend to think that would have caused problems with the Bulls' chemistry. Even if they had, won championships, I just think that there would have been something there. As far as, because I don't know if he would have got that money by then with Chicago that he wanted. You know how, if you know anything about Horace Grant, man, this is the same dude that one time called, he missed a game because he said that, what was the bullshit excuse? Something about his tires or his car or some shit. It was an obvious lie, man. And sometimes he could pack it in and do shit out of spite. I just think ultimately it was better off that he left Chicago. I think his tenure, it wasn't just Mike. Horace Grant was kind of tired of the Bulls organization at that point. So I think it was a good idea that he got the fuck up out of there and did what he did. Dennis came to Chicago, it was a perfect fit. The way he played he worked his ass off, Dennis Rodman. And that's something that was a difference. A little bit of a difference between Dennis Rodman and Horace Grant. Not saying these guys don't work, they work, but Dennis worked his fucking ass off to the point where it actually impressed Michael Jordan for a guy to go out there and party all fucking night into the morning, get maybe 1 or 2 hours of sleep, get on the fucking bike before the game, then go out there for 48 minutes or 35 minutes, whatever the actual minutes he played, get you 20 rebounds, and then be on the bike for another 45 minutes, and then go to the club. Like, that's crazy. But anyway, that's just how I feel about that. Tell me what you guys think.